Hello, this is for pre-calculus, and we're looking at page 17, number 5 out of your pre-calculus book, and it gives us these two functions, f and g, f of x and g of x, and it asks us to do several things, and I'm going to go through all of them. Part A was to add the two functions, that is, to find their sum. So that just means we want to take the first function, which is 3x squared plus 4x minus 5, plus the second function, which is 2x plus 9, and add them together. Now, I put these parentheses in here, all those parentheses that you see, because I wanted to separate the functions themselves. But if you notice, since there's addition between the two sets of parentheses, we don't really need it. What I am going to do, though, is I'm going to turn that minus 5 into a plus negative 5, because that helps me keep track of positives and negatives. So plus negative 5 plus 2x plus 9. And then I'm going to look, I've got an x term here and an x term here. I've only got one x squared term, so I'm going to put the x squared term in the front, and then I'm going to put the two x terms next to each other, and I'll put the two terms without an x at all, that is what we call the constant terms, and I'll put them together. And now I have the ability to take those two sets of terms and add them together because they are each like terms. So I get 3x squared plus, and then 4x plus 2x is 6x, plus, and then negative 5 plus 9 is a positive 4. And that is the sum of those two functions. So that's part A. Let's do part B on a new one. So part B, and in part B we want to subtract them. So I'll do the same thing. I'll put them in parentheses. F of x is 3x squared plus 4x minus 5. And so then that's minus g of x, which is 2x plus 9. Now this minus here, let me talk about that for a second. That minus is really important because it makes the parentheses really important. Because a minus isn't just a minus. It's adding a negative. A minus is a disguised plus negative. So let me show that. Plus negative right there. And clearly now there is a negative to distribute, or hopefully that's clear to you. If it's not, there it is. There's a negative to distribute. And that's why I always write my minuses as plus negative, is to avoid any problems with that, because if you write minus, you might forget that there's a negative there to distribute. So now I can write it without the parentheses. I'm going to write the minus 5 as plus negative 5 as well. And then plus, and then negative times 2x is negative 2x. Plus negative times 9 is negative 9. So that's 3x squared plus, and then I can put the 4x and the negative 2x together to make positive 2x. And I can put the negative 5 and the negative 9 together to make negative 14. And then plus negatives can be rewritten back as minuses as we're getting to the end of our problem. So then we've got, that's f of x minus g of x. So there's a subtraction. Let's then look at part C, which is the multiplication. We want to do f of x times, not very good at making a dot, I'll just make a small dot, times g of x. And so now that is going to be, I'm going to write them again, so 3x squared plus 4x minus 5 times 2x plus 9. So there's my multiplication, and what I'm going to do is, and you can do this either way, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this one and I'm going to distribute it to each one of these, keeping in mind that that is like plus negative 5, and I'm going to do that distribution. So I'll get 3x squared times 2x plus 9 plus 4x times 2x plus 9 plus negative 5 times 2x plus 9, which gives you another set of things to distribute. You can do that one. 3x squared times 2x is 6x cubed, because 3 times 2 is 6, and x squared times another x is x to the third, or x cubed. And then 3x squared times 9 is 27x squared, because you do 3 times 9 is 27, and then there's no other x's. Plus, and that plus is that plus, and then distribute these ones. 4x times 2x, 4 times 2 is 8, x times x is x squared, plus 4x times 9 is, 4 times 9 is 36, times that x, plus that plus right there, and then distribute the negative 5. So negative 5 times 2x, negative 5 times 2 is negative 10, and then we've got the x on the end, plus negative 5 times 9, positive times negative is negative, and 5 times 9 is 45. And then just combine our like terms. I've got some x squareds right there, no other x cubed, no other x cubes. So I'll leave the 6x cubed right there, plus, and then I'll put the x squareds together, that one and that one. 27x squared plus 8x squared, well, 27 plus 8 sounds like 35 to me, and then they get the x squared on the end of them, plus, and then we've got the x terms that we can put together, 36x plus negative 10x, 36 plus negative 10 is 26, and then the x on the end, plus negative 45, and I'm going to take that plus negative and turn it into a minus, and there is my f of x times g of x. Okay. So that's multiplication, and all of those are pretty simple, pretty straightforward. And then we run into division. So part D, where we want to do f of x over g of x. So let's take a look at that. We got 3x squared plus 4x minus 5 over 2x plus 9. Now, what I'd like to do is look at the quadratic here, and I'm going to look at it and ask myself, is it going to factor, and will it matter that it factors? So let me look at some side work here. 3x squared plus 4x minus 5. So what I would need, if it were to factor, I would need to make 3x squared, that would be 3x times x, Minus here means 1 plus and 1 minus, but I don't know in what order yet, because it's going to make a difference because these two are different now. I need factors of 5 that subtract in combination with the factors here to make that. So the problem is you got to kind of guess at this, and it might not even be possible. So if I put a 5 here, immediately I know that's not going to be it, because that's going to be 15, and there'd have to be a 1 there, and then 15 minus 1 is only 14. So I'm going to be multiplying here, and then subtracting and hoping that I get 4. Okay? So if 5 doesn't work, my only other option is 1 and 5 like that. 3 times 1 is 3, 5 times 1 is 5, 5 minus 3 is 2. So that factor is not possible, which is perfectly okay and doesn't really affect the problem at all. But it is something that you could check, because maybe something will cancel, things like that. If you look down here, though, nothing would even cancel with any of those scenarios, so there's not a whole great reason to do it. So here's what you do instead. You say on the top, I've got 3x squared plus 4x, minus 5 over 2x plus 9, and then you've got some side work to do, but it's not this side work. Instead, you take the denominator, the bottom number, you set it not equal to 0, and then you solve for x. So in this case, I'd subtract 9, and get 2x is not equal to negative 9, divide by 2, and get x is not equal to negative 9 over 2. So, oops, that's not what I wanted to do. So what I get is, I get that fraction, and then I get the additional information that x cannot equal negative 9 over 2, because if it did, this denominator would be 0, and that would ruin my day. So then this becomes the answer. Alright, so that is page 17, problem number 5. Thank you.